Welcome to day 2 of Passage Weather Planning. I'm Rich. I'm with Cindy. We're on Legacy and at twoatsea.com. Yesterday I went over all the tools I use to plan passage weather in quite a bit of detail. I'll do a little more of that now, but mainly I'll just take a look and see if I can find a window for us to get from New Caledonia to Gladstone, Australia. But first I want to look at the validation tool to decide what model to use. Yesterday, I pointed out that the validation doesn't work in New Caledonia. It says no data available. So I went to Denarau, Fiji, and it was PWE was pretty much the number one model. I had an idea today to go to Gladstone and see what it looked like. And when I do, GFS is the number one model. I can't bring myself to use GFS. I've had such terrible luck with it, especially in New Zealand, and I'm also thinking that I might be better off with a forecast that's working better in Fiji than one that has the coastal effects of the giant Australian continent. So I'm going to stick with PWE for the most part today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Isobar map. I'm going to zoom way out, and I'm going to look at PWE. This is where I start. There it is. The internet is really slow here today. Here's the Isobar map. It shows that low coming across New Zealand and all this wind from the south kicking up swells that are going to come up our way. It's 3:51 in the afternoon. It's what we were looking at yesterday as a possible time to leave, and I'm going to scroll through here. The wind starts south if we were to leave now. That's not going to happen, by the way. The wind goes east. There's a front coming across right here. I'll keep scrolling. We'd be above that. What I'm looking for now is another time to leave that looks good. Now, I don't want to go through this front. This is getting kind of serious looking, so that's Tuesday. So we're going to have to wait for that to go by, and now we're out of data. We were looking at possibility of Sunday, and you can see what that looks like. That looks like a possibility, but here's this front coming down in the way. So I'd say no, but maybe we'll do a weather routing Sunday anyway. Let's see, what time of the day Sunday would we leave? Doesn't really matter. So time to get checked out. So maybe 10 a.m., something like that. We can try that. I'm going to look a little further out, but in order to do that, I'm going to go to ECMWF because I think I get a lot more data, a lot more days on ECMWF. So after this front comes through, the next possible departure would be something like a week from now, Friday of next week. And that's a little far out to be looking, but that looks kind of good. There's a high down here, so maybe fairly settled weather. We could see if it'll show us what the waves look like here. Not too bad. 2 meters, 9 seconds. 2 meters, 8.6. Not great either. So that could be a problem. They're increasing. 2 meters, 8 seconds. These southerlies down here are probably going to be too big of an issue. They're going to kick up too much sea to make that a comfortable passage. But let's go back to weather routing. So I go to Tools, Weather Routing. I'll select my Gladstone route. I'm going to select Sunday. And let's make it, say 10 a.m. 11 a.m. That's good. And let it calculate. Okay, there it is. Let's look at PWE. Make sure we're looking at the right model. and scroll through and see what happens here. Some motoring to start with, some more motoring. Okay, wind in front of the beam here. This is a lot of upwind. And now it's on the nose, so that's a no-go. Let's look at the numbers anyway. All right, the models are diverging more, but that's because we're looking further out than we did on yesterday's video. Here we have 24 knots, 23 knots, 8 knots, or 9 knots. It's quite a disparity between the models. And I see that the rain here corresponds with wind that's under 15, so I guess I'm not too concerned about that. The seas, 1.5 going up to almost 2.5 meters. And I guess depending on the period drops pretty drastically here as we get closer to Australia. So I don't know that I like that a lot. Let's look at the wave height tables. Let's look at PWE, 1.6 meters, but we're 10 seconds. Now the waves are pretty small. They're going back up again, but at 10 or 11 seconds. 1.7, the period's coming down. And now we're at 1 meter at 4.5 seconds. That's probably just wind chop. Every time there's a big change like this, I wonder if the data has kind of run out and it's interpolating what's available. Because this is a big change. It goes from 10 seconds to 4.5 seconds. So I don't really trust that. Looking at ECMWF, the swell comes up to 2.2 meters at 9 seconds, 2 meters at 8 seconds. That's no good. Almost 2 meters at 7.5 seconds. That sounds pretty terrible. So I'm not thrilled with the swell. The wind, I'll just look at the summary. It has us averaging about 5.6 knots, 5.4 knots. That's not bad. Maximum gusts 25, 22. Not bad at all. Today this is showing some things I haven't seen before. So I'm looking at time upwind, 21%. That's pretty high. That's not real attractive for us. But here's some things I've never seen before. Here's time wind against current, percentage of time wind against current. It doesn't have any entry there, but here's time upwind at greater than 15 knots, and that's 5%. Boy, that's an interesting statistic. I like that. Most of it's in 1 to 2 meter waves. It's not the worst passage ever, but I'm sure not thrilled with it, so we won't be taking it. Going back to the map, the other thing I wanted to point out that I didn't point out yesterday is as we travel across here, we get this abrupt wind shift right here where in a very short distance the wind has changed 180 degrees. That's going to be a front of some kind. So if we look at rain, we're going to see a rain band there. And there it is. That's going to be pretty uncomfortable. So that's a frontal passage. And in those frontal passages, you can get almost anything. The forecast models don't really get it that well. And our general rule is it's always worse than we expect when we go through a front like that. We can also look at the cape there, convective available potential energy, and you can see the little faint blue here as the cape goes up. It's not extreme, but it is up here. That's pretty high. When that cape is higher, there are a lot more squalls. In general, I'd say this is a no for us. So let me go back to the forecast Isobar map. I'm going to go with ECMWF because it has more data and zoom out quite a ways and see when the next potential window is. So there's what we're not taking on Sunday. There we have fronts coming through, and the front doesn't pass until Saturday the 11th of June. And there the seas were high with these big southerlies blowing all through the Tasman, kicking up waves for us. So that's probably going to have to calm down before we go. So I would say there is nothing on the horizon for us. Rather than do these videos every day like I'd planned, since there's nothing, I'll just give it a check. And then when I see something again, I'll resume the videos. Anyway, that's today's lesson. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks a lot.